Ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
All right, let's get started because it is hot and humid today.
Yes.
It is hot and humid. Who agrees that it's hot and humid? Raise your hand. Come on, be honest.
I've lived here all my life.
There you go.
Feels nice to me.
Feels nice to you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, my name is Bill Reynolds, and I would like to welcome you to our summer open house here at Delights Nursery and Juniper Level Botanic Garden. And this morning we're going to take a walk through the garden and look at a few groups of plants that have a very tropical look, tropical feel. Some of them actually may be tropical. Plants that are tropical are not necessarily restricted to the tropics or to necessarily warm zones. So there are many plants that are tropical in origin or occupy high altitude or cooler parts of the tropics that will do quite well here in North Carolina. So we're going to walk through the garden, look at a few groups of plants, talk about kind of creating those little tropical oases, little tropical gardens or tropical looking gardens in our yards here in North Carolina. And if you see any plants that you like, I encourage you to take pictures of the plant. And most of these, if not all of them, should be labeled, and so we can find the names. If you see plants that you're interested in, please go see the sales staff, because many of these things we do carry and we do offer to the public. So with that said, yes ma'am.
Question, I understand that I believe Raleigh's in zone 7?
We are a zone/8.
Oh, 8 here, but in
So,
the city of Raleigh?
well, Raleigh proper probably is on the warm side of 7 until you get up into kind of the north and west part of it. And really, zones can change. And I'm 8 miles away. I'm 8 miles away, and I am a zone 8 clearly with sandy soil. This is a sandy lake bed. This was a Cretaceous lake bed about 75, 80 million years ago. So it doesn't, Plant Delights is very lucky. We're not really sitting on one of those hard red clay rocky pans. This was an old lake, an old coastal lake, kind of like Lake Waccamaw. So you go back about 80 million years ago, and this was a very different looking place. So with that said, soil types, there are a lot of things, elevation, little microclimates can play a big role in what zones things are. And a zone isn't always just a clear line. It can actually kind of fit together like my fingers do. So it can jump, and you have little islands of warmer areas and islands of cooler areas. So we're going to walk through the gardens here. 7, 8. So the plants we grow here in the gardens are in tune or able to survive our Raleigh area. So pretty much from Durham east, even some a little further west. So let's take a look. And the ground's gonna be a little squishy. We finally got rain. How many of you needed rain? Yeah, we've all needed rain. We finally got a lot of it. Let's start first on the list. There are some rather exotic, and I like to use the word exotic because a lot of times we use tropical oasis. I think an exotic look is really what a lot of people are looking for, and with that exotic look, you're going to find plants that more often than not have a tropical feel to them. You know, I'm going to Disney World kind of feeling. And you go there and you see all the really colorful, big, tall, big leafy things. And I think there are a lot of things here that we can grow. Hymenocallis lilies. These are in the Amaryllidaceae. There are a number of native species to the southeast in the Americas. They've got large, fleshy leaves. Oftentimes, many of them are bright, shiny green. They've got nice spread of white star-like flowers. But that is a good one, and they're really good to just kind of intersperse if you want a little bit of that tropical feel. Everybody, I'm sure, knows what this is. Somebody want to tell me what we have right here? Canas. Canas belong to the same order of plants as like bananas and hedychiums and gingers, the zingiberales. Plants in this particular group, large foliage. Many of them do have colorful flowers, like birds of paradise, which also belong to this same order. But cannas are an excellent plant. Most cannas do quite well in full sun or dappled light. And you will see a number of cannas around our gardens. We have many. We have short ones, tall ones. But cannas are a really nice foliage plant to add into that kind of tropical look.
The ripply leaves.
That is a farfugium.
Farfugium?
And it is a relative of like dandelions.
Okay.
It is in the aster family. and they're Asiatic, but they have large leaves. It does have an exotic look to it. Nice little understory plant, shade plant.
Oh, shade. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
With these exotic plants, when it comes to winter, do you do anything to protect them from the cold?
The vast majority of these plants, the herbaceous, many of them die to the ground, and the roots and buds persist under. About the only thing that we really offer protection-wise is just when we mulch in the winter, the fall and winter. And oftentimes the mulch is usually about 2 to 3 inches. In some areas a little shallower depending on what kind of plants we have, but really no additional care. We don't dig up anything, we don't bring it in, and we don't cover things to protect them. So the things you see in the garden are things that will survive in this climate zone. And the gardens here at Plant Delights, Juniper Level, this is our test gardens to see what will grow here before we sell it. So we have a pretty good feel for what will survive here. These are a really nice one. And there are a number of plants that are in this group. The aroids. How many of you like elephant ears and colocasias, alocasias, elephant ears? They're aroids, which are related to things like houseplants like your peace lilies. This is an aroid. This is Morphophallus. Large foliage, very tropical looking. These are Southeast Asia. Some of them are higher elevation. Cloud forests, others in rainforests, but this also is a plant that will give you a very tropical, lush feel. Again, a better understory plant, nice, humid, dappled light, although some may persist or do okay in full sun. The better looking ones in the garden tend to be in dappled light or a little shady.
What is this right here? A ginger?
It is. That's a hedychium. And again, those are plants they are. And the hedychiums have the flowers up at the top where your zingibers have the flowers down near the ground. And the curcumas down near the ground. Curcumas, hedychiums, and the zingibers are all in the same family. That's your ginger family. Again, related to canas and bananas. They've got that very similar big flowing herbaceous leaf. But these are also an excellent plant to give you kind of that tropical feel. Curcumas, like down there at the end.
With the wrinkly leaves?
Well, it's the, it's got the real striated, kind of a little bit purplish in the middle.
And the wrinkle.
But they've got that same growth.
And what kind of lily is this? Is that a crinum?
This is a crinum. This here is a crinum. Same family. It's an Amaryllidaceae, Amaryllids. Amaryllids, they do have kind of that, what we think of as a lush or exotic look. Big, thick, green foliage, flowing foliage. And, excuse me, bug tried to be lunch. Sorry about that. But they can add to that kind of exotic look. And a lot of these will do quite well in full sun, dappled light, and some even in the shade. But this is a crinum. What we had over there earlier was the Hymenacalis. This is a crinum.
Oh, the other one wasn't a crinum? It was
Hymenacalis, same family. But that one's America's. Most of these are African. Bananas. Of course, those are a favorite. Here in this part of North Carolina, we can grow about 10 plus species or cultivars, varieties, maybe more. The Basjoo, which is the fiber banana, that is by far the cold hardiest. Here in our zone 8A, 7B, oftentimes the winters are mild enough that really what happens is the top leaves will burn and drop and kind of cover the stalk. Now, a lot of people like to cut them. I don't, because if the winter is mild enough, they will pick up where they left off instead of starting at the ground. So it isn't necessary to cut bananas. It's also, for a lot of these herbaceous plants, if you cut them in the fall or winter, you're opening up the base of the plant that could make it susceptible to freezing, which would carry it down into the roots. Because when that water in the plant freezes, it's going to go down. So again, sometimes leaving the stalks and the leaves, don't do any cleaning on a lot of these tropical looking things until they are fully dead and fall over. In other words, leave it, because some of them may pick up in the spring where they left off.
Have you ever gotten to fruit when they grow 2 years in a row? No.
They may flower, they may go to fruit, but it's really important to understand the banana that you eat, the Cavendish banana, it's one of very, very few bananas that actually are palatable. And many of these, have you ever eaten like a really kind of young green banana, how they're kind of astringent?
Yeah.
Multiply that by hundreds, and it'll give you an idea of what that thing's fruit would taste like.
Okay.
Having grown up in Florida, always, you know, as a kid, you're tempted to eat bananas. If you don't buy it at the grocery store, don't eat it.
Those little bitty ones, you know.
The little red one, little volutinas,
Yeah.
those can be. They're kind of self-peeling, and we've got some volutinas, but they're over in the sun garden.
Okay.
But those can be, but they're also seedy, so you're going to want to pick the seeds out. The little black seeds are kind of hard, but that also will give you a real tropical look. Of course, palms. Now this palm here, it's an unusual individual. It's variegated, but it's a needle palm. Needle palms are a very ancient palm. They're actually an Ice Age relic. You wouldn't have thought about that when you think of palm, would you? They follow the edge of the glaciers here in North America. They're native to the southeastern U.S., and they occupy kind of the outer edge of the Piedmont, down through part of South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. So it's really an unusual plant that is purely a temperate plant, not a tropical, but being a palm, it has that tropical look. There's a big clump of them right here behind this tree that are solid green. You see the palms that are a big cluster behind the tree right over here.
Up in the tree, yeah.
And they're very cold hardy. They can withstand down into the single digits and still be green.
Are they similar
So
to?
the yellowing right here, is that indicating that it's too much shade?
No, that's actually a variegated individual. So it's just kind of an anomalous mutation, just a very rare, unusual individual.
And are those related to the windmill palm at all?
They are.
Oh.
There's a windmill palm right there behind you. Big tall palm there. This is the windmill palm. Windmill palms have a real tropical look because when people think palm tree, they immediately think tropics and they immediately think vacation. Interesting thing about the windmill palm, again, you can have that tropical looking oasis in a temperate zone 7, 8. These plants are native to the southern perimeter cloud forests of the Himalayas. There are several species in this genus, Trachycarpus, and starting in kind of India, across through Burma, into China, and these plants typically look their best when they're growing in kind of a richer clay soil and interspersed in kind of a quasi-shaded forested environment. A lot of times people want to put a palm right out in full sun. They actually can do quite well there, but they tend to be kind of compact and oftentimes a little more yellowed, a little more chlorotic. They get kind of sunburned. I think that they reach their prettiest when they're kind of mixed in with a little bit of shade and a lot of humidity. So it's really more of a cloud forest, humid forest, dappled light than it is an open savanna full sun. Or
How old is that palm about?
these palms probably are around 25 years old. 20. Always look to see what your space offers, your sunlight, your soil, and see if that plant that you've picked is good for that.
What about acidity of the soil? You know, you have such a variety of plants, different needs, shade and sun.
That's a very good question. It's a very good question. And pH is pretty important when it comes to nutrient absorption for plants. Some plants like a higher pH, some like a lower pH. Most of these are doing quite well in the same pH range, which tends to be on the little, I think, higher end of acidic towards neutral. This is the South Carolina Florida state tree here. It's Florida and South Carolina state tree. Yes, sable palmetto. Well, you know, South Carolina is the palmetto state. Those are sable palmettos. Those are native. The sable palmetto is native here to the southeast.
And they grow here?
They do.
I mean, obviously, but
They do.
not just South Carolina.
Oh no, they make it. North Carolina is the northern end of their native range.
Okay.
And here we have the philodendron, right here.
And you have some variegated species too, right?
But this particular philodendron is a very cold hardy one. Philodendron right here. That definitely will give you a tropical oasis look. And again, probably what you'd want to do if you get something like that is find a slightly more protected spot in your garden or near your home, because it might be a little more sensitive than some of the other plants. But in the wintertime, when the leaves burn, what we do is we just kind of roll the leaves around the base.
Oh,
So take those burnt leaves and just kind of make like a cap with its own foliage, and wait until spring when it starts before we clean it up. Because again, remember, with a lot of these tropical looking or exotic looking plants that are herbaceous, like bananas, like the elephant ears, the philodendron, actually cutting them off to the ground and exposing that can be detrimental to the plant. Well, it can be. If you had you can get a little bit more freezing that can affect the roots and the buds. So
I have a problem with, depending on where they're planted in the garden, if they get like morning dew and then they get
burnt. So
or something like that. I think that was what, and they would just die back and really not do very well.
some plants can be really, really sensitive to that. So it's probably a good idea for many of these really kind of tender herbaceous. Things like elephant ears can burn. And some of them really shed water well, others tend to burn if the water droplet sticks. Just bear in mind, if it's early in the morning, you got dewdrops, don't have them on the immediate east side where they're going to get hit first thing in the morning by sun. So again, it takes a little bit of planning. Does anybody else have any questions? No?
I'm good, thank you.
But as you walk through the gardens, you'll see a lot of things like we talked about. Does anybody remember the lily here, the white one? There's another Hymenacalis, really pretty one. But again, it has kind of that nice exotic look to it and could certainly be a corner piece to like a tropical garden. Your little tropical oasis.
With the agaves, basically a lot of those are in containers to be taken in during the winter.
A lot of the agaves that we have here actually though will persist outside. If you want to, big thing with the agaves is to make sure that if you're going to plant things like that, to plan for a xeric bed, because one of the things that's really difficult to do is to get in there and to hand weed around really spiny plants. So you want to make sure, don't intersperse your agave with things that are really herbaceous and tend to want to swamp it and overgrow it. So agaves can also add to that kind of tropical feel. So.
Is this euphorbia?
Yes, ma'am, it is. But we have a lot of plants, and Tony does a very good job arranging plants into groups and groupings that give a really lush feel, but also a lot of texture, a lot of color that transitions from shorter to taller. And that's another thing you want to consider: taller plants in the back, shorter plants in the front. But ferns, they can also add to that tropical feel. Bamboos. We're also walking through a garden in which there's close to 30,000 different plants, so this talk could actually probably go on for days. But I am going to turn all of you loose and let you continue to enjoy the gardens. If you do see any plants that you like, please take a picture. You're welcome to show our sales staff or anyone wearing a staff shirt. We'll do our best to identify the plant, and if we have it, we can direct you to it. I want to thank all of you for visiting, and we appreciate you guys coming out.
Well, appreciate your talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Informative.
And if you have any questions, please look for folks in staff shirts, and we'll do our best.